Good evening, everybody. Here back at the Mancave for a Timberwolves Weekly regular series we plan to do every week to recap the previous week of the Timberwolves. And fortunately, we have a esteemed panel here tonight with us, including a newcomer to the program, but not a newcomer to sports. My good friend Brian Naughton. We call him B Naughty. You can find him on Instagram at B Naughton Blues. Great sports mind, second only to mine. And good to have you on, Brian. So welcome aboard. Just another little tidbit. Brian and I are born on the same day, so been hanging out since we were young. But he will have to attest that I am the greater fantasy football mind, as I am 3-0 against him in 2 years of being in the same league. So love you, Brian.
Hey. Continue on, sir.
Yes. Good day, sir. All right. So week one is in the books. Timberwolves are 2-2, coming off of a loss to the Dallas Mavericks last night. And we figured here, for the sake of this telecast, we'd review week one, look at the good, bad, and the ugly. And I will start with the good. Anthony Edwards, through 4 games, is averaging 30 points a game, shooting lights out from 3. I believe he's at 41.5. Brian, I think you told me an interesting stat before we came on here. He has hoisted up more threes than anybody but James Harden through the first 4 games. So, I mean, Ant's feeling it, looking good out there. Obviously, we're 2-2 or 500, but for him to be averaging 30 points a game coming off a season where I believe he averaged a little over 26, it's just the maturation, the ascent of his offensive game, and him really becoming a megastar. Ramon, what are you thinking through 4 games? What do you see as the good in the first week of the Timberwolves season?
I'm going to go with one of the new guys, Julius Randle, who hadn't played basketball since January, so hadn't played in 9 months due to the shoulder injury that took place last season. And through the 4 games, he has been, I believe, extremely good. Doesn't look all that rusty, especially offensively. I believe he's averaging 23 a game. He's shooting 60+% from the field. And here's the real shocker to me. On 4 attempts, 3-pointer attempts a game, he's shooting 62.5% from 3 right now. He's passing the ball, 5 assists a game. Turnovers are a little high at 3, but that's actually true for the entire team. Turnovers are one of the biggest problems. Bit of a preview of what I may discuss for the ugly later in the show. But I'd say Julius Randle is, and I give honorable mention to Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well. But Julius Randle, to me, has been one of the bright spots, especially coming into a new situation, having just been traded a couple of weeks before the season started. New teammates, new setting, coming back from injury, and he's putting up some nice numbers, and I think he's playing winning basketball. And one of the differences, I think, with him in comparison to Karl Anthony Towns is that when he has a mismatch, he doesn't waste time. He just goes right at it. He doesn't, unfortunately for Cat, he'd often come in flailing the stray voltage, as I think Chris Finch likes to call it. And
straight voltage.
Julius Randle just attacks it. And then, not only that, he goes in really strong, but then when he can't get all the way to the basket, he's got a really soft touch with different floaters with both hands. And so I've been really impressed so far. Couple of defensive issues that we can talk about later, but I'll keep it positive right now. Brian, what do you think?
Well, let me tell you something, sir. Cat was the identity of this team for 9 years. I mean, and all those years weren't so good. And breaking up that core, and then new teammates gelling. Obviously, they're giving it to Ant, but we played 3 really good teams. Really, really good teams. And we're 2-2. And I think that's the good. We can just wait to see this come to fruition now. And I'll pass it to you, Mr. C.
Yeah, I think my bad and ugly, I've got that filled up. I got a whole bag of rage sitting over here on my shoulder for that. But I think on the good side, kind of alluding to, like Ramon said, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. This kid right now leads the Wolves with plus 27. Okay. His overall, let me spin back to my right spot here. 3-point percentage, 66 and over 66%. His overall field goal percentage is 61.9. I think Na has come out and he knows he's not going to get big hits, and I think he put a lot of the stress on himself. Finch was talking about preseason. He was trying to be point guard. He was trying to figure out where his identity was, and Finch kind of sat him down and said, hey, don't worry about that. Just be you. Just keep doing what you've been doing. We need that. And Na has responded as one of our very bright spots in some of the areas that we've lacked in. He's a plus 27. He's blowing everybody away. Everybody else is in single digits or negative. You know, they're not even close. Na's doing the thing. I think that this is a year, you know, we talked about in the preseason preview about really needing Jaden to step up, and so far I haven't really seen Jaden, but Na is definitely taking a big step forward. If he keeps going like this, he's going to get some eyes and he's going to get some looks, definitely. But plus 27, 60, over 60% field goal, over 60% from three. He's making an impact. And his defense has always been good. So I think for me, the good has been Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Mike?
All right, now we can cover the bad. And from what I can see through 4 games, there's plenty, and I don't want to get too negative or, you know, no panic button just yet. It's 4 games into the season. I believe we started 1-2 last year and got on a little bit of a ride. So not a big deal. I mean, it's not like we're in some big hole, but I think there's a few bad things I can take of. I'll go with one of the obvious. To me, the defense. And I believe we are 13th through 4 games, where obviously we held the number 1 spot for a good portion of last year. My biggest concern right now is we are giving up a lot of offensive rebounds. And it killed us last night. I mean, I know somebody's going to bring up, you know, some of the other items as well, but to me, the defense just looks out of sort right now. I know a couple of us observed, I think all of us observed Julius Randle a little slow to get back on defense and or his effort in game 1. Hopefully he buys into the philosophy, the defensive philosophy that Rudy has helped instill in this current team. I think he will. I mean, he seems like a good teammate. He seems like he's loving the team. He's starting to gel in, and I think that will develop as the season progresses. But so far, the defense, to me, just hasn't looked that well through 4 games. Ramon, what do you got for bad?
I mean, I agree with you 100%, so thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to start kind of with a positive, and then I'm going to go negative. But I think one of the marching orders for this season for the Timberwolves was to chuck a lot of threes. You can see it with the amount of threes that Anthony Edwards is putting up. You can just see it up and down the roster outside of Rudy Gobert. But I'd say the bad right now, and these are 2 of my favorite players, so I don't like kind of picking on them or bringing up their names, but Mike Conley and Dante DiVincenzo, one of the other new guys that we acquired in the Karl Anthony Towns trade, they are shooting very poorly from 3 right now. And both are getting a lot of really great looks. I think Conley, let me just double check. I think he's shooting 27%, and he's a career 39% shooter from 3. So I have no doubt that it'll be just fine at some point in the season, or probably pretty soon, because they look like they're getting closer and closer. DiVincenzo, who I am so excited to have on the team because of all the things he brings to the table, shooting, playmaking, energy. He's just a fierce winning player, but unfortunately he's shooting 31% overall, 27% from 3. Again, I don't think that those numbers are going to stay low like that, but they're getting great looks and unfortunately just not hitting them. Again, I do believe those 2 will see it through. They're not guys that lose confidence, and we know they put in the work, so they'll be just fine. But that's a bit of a concern at this point for me. Brian, what about you?
Well, Ants played a lot of basketball in the summer the last 2 years. I mean, a lot of basketball. And especially with Cat being gone, his legs look a little bit tired. He's kind of gimping around like Deion Sanders with turf toe back in the day, you know. Hopefully that gets a little bit better. I do not like Rudy being the last one down on defense almost every time. It's weird to me. I mean, Defensive Player of the Year. The other thing is when Rudy is not in the ballgame, who's getting those defensive rebounds? I don't see them. And that's the bad for me. And I'll pass to Mr. Steve.
Yeah, the bad for me has, there's a couple here that I can tee off on, and I'll try to be succinct because I think the ugly is where I want to put more of my vitriol.
I can't wait for ugly.
Oh God, just the bad for me right now is the you guys have already talked about the defense. So I'm going to leave that one alone. I mean, they're giving up a crap ton of points in the paint. They haven't held one team under 100 points this year, and that was one of their calling cards last year, was that you had to fight to get to 100 points with this team, and it's not there anymore. But the turnovers are ridiculous. 20 last night. I mean, we should have. When you've got Ant coming out the gate and just blowing the doors off in the first quarter, we should be able to feed off that and be able to get rolling. And the turnovers, and Ant, 2 crap turnovers in the last 2, crunch time. I mean, and that was but we had so many turnovers, 20 that game. I think we're averaging 16, 17 now because of the 20 turnovers last night. So for me, the bad is the turnovers. You cut that in half. You even drop out 5 or 6. That's the difference in the game last night. You convert on, you take some of those turnovers and you convert those in just a couple baskets, not even threes. We're winning that game. So the bad for me, turnovers.
All right, now we'll go to the ugly. And since Steve stole my ugly, which is fine, I knew it was bound to happen. But yeah, I'd rather do this organic and on the fly. But I'll just say the rotation right now, I'm a little concerned about. Through 4 games, I had hoped to see more than 8-9 players. I know Ingles has gotten very little minutes and quite frankly hasn't contributed yet from what I've watched. But I would like to see a game that gets out of hand, hopefully in our favor, just to see what Josh Minot or Dillingham or even TSG can bring, because I think eventually, when we did the preview show and we talked about the offseason as well, the offseason show, we thought these guys were going to be contributors, and obviously the Cat trade, blew that out of the water, changed the rotation, etc. I really want to see what they're able to do, because right now with Conley struggling, who's going to be our point? I mean, Nikhil's playing great, but he's not a true 1. Ant's playing some 1, but let's be honest with you, through 4 games, Ant's turning the ball over at a ridiculous rate. So, I mean, Conley, he's looking his age. I want to see what Dillingham has, and unfortunately, we might not see that in key minutes. We might not see it till garbage time, but I won't say it's ugly per se, but I want to see what some of these other players can do. Luka, and right now, Finchie's keeping that rotation very thin. And on the flip side, you look at Dallas last night, they played like 10 or 11 players. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's that ugly, but I want to see what we've got with some of these other players, especially the young guys like Dillingham and TSG that haven't gotten in there. But also Josh Minot, who really, let's be honest, I think it's his 3rd season here, hasn't been given that many meaningful minutes. And I can say this, I think defensively he will bring something that Ingles won't. And we need somebody we talked about it, with the offensive rebounds we're allowing. We need somebody to get some damn defensive boards outside of Rudy.
Yeah.
Ramon, you got some, I'm guessing you got some ugly for us.
I do. Steve got ahead of me, and he turnovers. So he stole a bunch of our ideas.
Yes.
But I'm going to focus on that a little bit, but I would say it's part of a larger problem. I think it's a loss of focus, or a lack of focus that they often have, and I think it reared its head last night in the amount of turnovers they had. I think that, like you said, Steve, they had 20 turnovers. Dallas had 9. And for the season, I think they're averaging 16.5 a game, which is, I think, 21st in the NBA. And I took a look at a list, and the teams that are worse are some of the teams that will be sagging for flag this season, like Detroit, Utah, Portland, Charlotte, Toronto. Those are just to name a few of the teams that are actually worse in turnovers than the Timberwolves. But I would also say last night, their free throw shooting, they were terrible at the line. I think they shot 50-some%. They got to the line a lot, but they couldn't hit them, and missed a lot of free throws. And then also, and I don't know, I don't have a stat, but from what I saw, they'd make a basket and then get beaten down court. And I think it happened, 3, 4, 5 times? I mean, that's inexcusable to make a basket and then get beaten down court. And so I think that there's just a lack of focus at times, and that's kind of the difference between the Timberwolves right now and a team like Dallas, is that Dallas is disciplined and stays disciplined in big moments and throughout big games. The Wolves sometimes lose that. I would also argue that in the Toronto game, Mike, you mentioned that you want to see guys like Garza, guys like Minot get a chance to play. And that opportunity, I think, would have definitely been there in that Toronto game. It looked like the Wolves were about to blow the game wide open, but then they kind of seemed to just start settling for shots, lose their focus. And so Toronto was always just kind of hanging around in that 10-point, 15-point range. So you couldn't just, hey, let's bring in all the other guys and give them a chance to play. So I'd say the ugly is the lack of focus. Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to have to touch on a little bit of everything you guys did right here. I'd like to see the rotation. We'd love to see the Diller out there. We'd love to see TSJ out there. Garza, if we don't have to watch him play defense. We'd love to see that. But I'm looking at this thing on my phone right now. All the lottery picks, other than Donovan and Edie, they're all shooting under 30%. I think Finchy might be protecting TSJ and the Diller. I mean, a part of me thought that, remember when, I'm aging myself here, but when Bill Parcells was the coach for the Patriots and Bob Kraft drafted Terry Glenn, and they asked Bill Parcells, how's Glenn coming along? And he's like, she's doing all right. Same kind of thing when they were asking about the Dylan. How's Dillingham working in through it? Well, mixed. Next question. So I'm not worried too much about that. But touching on the ugly, and there is no question what the ugly is. I got 3 words for you. Turnovers, turnovers, turnovers. Pass on to you.
Yeah, so for me, like Mike and I were talking a little before this. He and I coached our boys' basketball team for 4 years or something like that. And if this was my team, which it's not, I'm not that cool, but these guys would be running, and I'd be berating them, their families, their sisters, their mothers, and their dogs. Because the biggest thing, kind of like what Ramon said, is not just focus, it's energy. They're walking around like they actually won fucking something last year, and they didn't. They didn't win nothing. You got to the Western Conference Finals, and then that team that was on the court last night, they spanked you. Yeah. They spanked you out of the thing. You haven't earned anything yet. You're not cool enough. I don't want Ant. Ant is coming out like gangbusters, but again, Game 1, okay, you kind of give them that. I was mad. You can ask these guys. I was texting up a store, and I was like, get Randall out of here, because he just standing around letting people run past him, getting rebounds. He's like, huh? Like, you've played basketball before, right? Defense is one of the easier things to master in basketball versus the offensive side of the ball. Offense, you're not quite sure where to go. Defense is pretty simple. Get on a guy, box out. We're not seeing that. Rebounding, not in our favor. Points in the paint, what did we give up? Like 30-some, 40-some last night to the Mavs? It was ridiculous. And that defense comes down to effort, it comes down to energy, and it comes down to heart. That was one of the things that was great about last year, is that you never really questioned the effort that the Timberwolves had. They always came out hard. They were going to make you earn if you got over 100 points. It was like a point of pride with them. And it was a point of effort that they were going to do that and really make people work. Now they're kind of lackadaisical. Even last night, Randall was kind of zoning in and out at times. He'd be standing there like kind of, flat-footed, and you didn't know what he was doing, on defense. And I'm like, what? Dude, they just blew right past you to get that rebound. So for me, the energy and like you said, Ramon, the focus, it's just garbage. I'm sorry. This is not, if they think they're just going to muddle their way through the season, doing just kind of, when we made the Western Conference Finals last year, that's great. Enjoy your playing game, maybe a series, and you're going to get bounced. Because if you don't step it up, and this is the time, this is what I was worried about in the preview, right? I said, we might have a lull when we were talking about predictions while we try to get ourselves put together because of the trade, right? While we're trying to get together. Well, this isn't really such a lull because they're not able to do their offense. They've been scoring over 100 points themselves. The offense is there. They're getting it. Randall and DiVincenzo, for the most part, have been like 20 and 10 guys, which more than makes up for Cat. It's the energy and it's the focus on defense. And that's what's the bad for me, is that they're not putting that in. So if I was a coach, they'd be running and they'd be running and they'd be running and be like, when you guys put in the energy on the court, then you guys can stop running. But until then, I don't want to hear it. Sweat it out.
All right. Tell us how you really feel. All
He
right.
meant that.
I'm going to check your heart rate there, Steve.
Let's see here. We are now at 81 beats per minute. Oh, climbing to 82.
Oh, there you
There
go.
we go.
We got
Moving
them
up.
worked up. But
Moving
hey,
up.
it's early in the season. I think they'll be all right. But appreciate getting this crew together here. I know we'll get this crew together on every Wednesday night, hopefully. We'll try to make this a staple of our content. We'll also have Brett will be back here as well. I know he's flying tonight. So you might have as many as 5 of us on these things, which we don't have. You know, you get this many great minds, we'll come up with something good, right? But anyways,
Crowdsource our thoughts.
yes. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, gentlemen. It's been fun. Let's do this again next Wednesday, and appreciate it. That's a wrap. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.